Welcome to Unstuck by Nicole, a little perspective in your pocket to help you think differently, lead differently, and hopefully get unstuck from whatever is keeping you where you are. You're too confident to have anxiety. I have heard different versions of that sentence several times in my life, and sometimes it sounds like, "You have anxiety? Really? I would never have known." And I understand the surprise because confidence can be very visible, but anxiety often is not. This is very personal to me. I am a high functioning, anxious, and confident human being. I always have been. Now, I don't know if that's because I am the firstborn, or perhaps because I have an overthinking disposition, or because I hate doing anything wrong, so much so that even the thought of doing something wrong can actually cause me significant stress? Or is it because my big three in astrology are all known for their overthinking tendencies? Hello and welcome, Virgo rising, Gemini sun, and Aquarius moon. Who knows? But what I do know is that I am also extremely confident. You can put me on a stage in front of thousands of people and I come to life. Ask me to meet new people or host key figures and I thrive. You can put me on the spot in some really uncomfortable situations and I will often do some of my best work. And that confidence is very real. But also, so is my anxiety. I think we have a tendency to treat anxiety and confidence as though they sit at completely opposite ends of the same scale, almost as though the more confident you are, the less anxious you must be. And the more anxious you are, the less confident you could possibly feel. But that has never reflected my experience. People see me speak, lead, host, and respond, and they see a version of me who can hold a room, engage with people, and step very comfortably into a visible role. But what they do not necessarily see is everything that's happening beneath the surface. I am somebody who constantly scans the environment. I decipher conversations. I can notice teeny tiny changes in people's behavior, and I can spot those mild shifts in body language. My brain is almost trying to predict what might happen next. And sometimes that turns into anxiety. And when my anxiety becomes heightened, I do not only experience it in my thoughts, I really feel it in my body. For me personally, it shows up as discomfort in my stomach, a chronic ache in my neck, tension around my shoulders, and a headache, which tends to be accompanied by heaviness in chest and quite often the absence of sleep. Someone watching me confidently deliver on stage may not know any of that, but their inability to see it does not make it less real. When someone questions whether I can genuinely have anxiety because I appear so confident, I can occasionally become guarded. Sometimes I feel dismissive of the assumption, but most other times I find myself responding with even more confidence while I very gently guide them towards the reality of my personal experience. And this is important. That additional confidence is not a performance designed to cover my anxiety. It is not a mask. It is my genuine confidence being recruited to explain another equally real and equally important part of me. My confidence helps me advocate for the part of myself that somebody else cannot see. And I think there is something quietly difficult about feeling that you need to do that. When anxiety is not outwardly obvious, it can feel as though people doubt whether it is as real as you say it is. So you find yourself managing not only your own internal experience, but somebody else's disbelief about it. And if you respond capably and confidently, the anxiety may remain invisible to them. The very confidence you use to explain it can reinforce their assumption that it cannot exist. And perhaps the confusion begins because anxiety and confidence do not describe the same thing. In my own experience, anxiety is an internal state. It can make my mind and my body behave as though something requires my immediate attention, even when the thing I'm responding to has not happened, and it may honestly never happen. Confidence is a capacity. It is the self belief that allows me to step forward, tolerate vulnerability, and act even when there is discomfort. There is also a useful distinction between stress and anxiety. Stress is generally understood as a response to an external cause. Anxiety can remain present even when there is no current threat. And that distinction matters to me because anxiety is not simply another word for being visibly afraid, incapable, or unsure of myself. It can be present while I am doing something really good and something I know and something I excel at. It can be present when I'm leading. It can be present when I'm helping somebody else. And it can be present at exactly the same time as confidence. And sometimes for me, anxiety and confidence do more than just coexist. In my case, they actually work together. My anxiety heightens my attention, and my confidence helps me act on what I notice. I see this most clearly when I am delivering behavioral training. When we are exploring self awareness profiling, there are moments when I can recognize a change in how someone feels about themselves based on what they have just read. There might be only a very tiny shift, almost a micro movement, a simple change in their body language, or a kind of different energy in how they begin to reflect. But I can see the processing phase take over. Words written in black and white can suddenly feel like a fact. A profile can begin to feel less like useful information and more like a fixed verdict on who that person is. And because I notice that shift in people, I can respond to it. I can slow the moment down. I can offer and provide supportive context. And I can ask a different question. I use my coaching skills to help them move through the processing phase and towards a truer understanding of what they have just read. The aim is not to dismiss the profile, but it is to actually help the person see that those words are information about them and not the entirety of them. Something they can actually understand, accept, and apply without allowing it to confine them. There is an irony in that for me. In my work, I actually help people avoid reducing themselves to a label. Yet, when somebody assumes that anxiety must mean a lack of confidence, they are doing something very similar. They are allowing one label to become the whole person. Anxious becomes a verdict about what somebody should look like and how they should behave and what they should be capable of. But people are rarely that simple. We can be anxious and confident. We can feel discomfort and yet still step forward. We can experience internal uncertainty while holding genuine belief in our ability. One truth does not automatically erase another. I do also want to be careful not to romanticize anxiety. The same sensitivity that helps me read a room and support another person can also become costly. There is a point at which useful attentiveness stops feeling like intuition and starts taking over my thinking. Instead of responding to what is actually present, I begin trying to solve problems that have not yet happened, problems that may not even exist. And the worry of doing something wrong grows. Tiny things become catastrophes, and eventually my body lets me know that I have crossed the line. The difference for me is not whether anxiety is simply good or bad. It is whether I'm receiving information from the moment or being consumed by an imagined future. That is a question I have learned to notice. Am I responding to what is present, or am I trying to prevent something I fear might happen? I do not always catch the shift immediately, but recognizing that there is a line between the two helps me hold the complexity more honestly. My anxiety can sharpen my awareness, contribute to my drive, and help me create meaningful experiences for other people. But it can also exhaust me, occupy my thoughts, and ask my body to carry threats that are not there. My confidence allows me to speak, lead, and respond. And it also helps me explain and protect the anxious part of myself when somebody else cannot see it. Both are true. So perhaps the more useful question is not, how can that person possibly be anxious when they seem so confident? Perhaps it's, what else might be true about this person that I cannot see? And that is the invitation I want to leave you with this week. Notice the moments when one visible quality starts to become your whole explanation of someone. That may be another person, or it may be you. When you hear yourself saying, I cannot be this because I am that, pause and ask, what else might be also true? You may be anxious and confident, sensitive and capable, uncomfortable and still willing to step forward. You do not have to prove one part of yourself by hiding another. Anxiety does not mean a lack of confidence. Confidence does not mean an absence of anxiety. Both can be real and both can belong. Thank you for spending this time with me. If today's conversation got you thinking and you're someone who enjoys reading, you'll find this perspective as an article on my website too. If someone came to mind while you were listening today, perhaps they needed to hear this conversation. And if it feels right, I'd love you to share it with them. But until next time, keep a little perspective in your pocket.